And we are live. Only a few minutes late, just a few minutes here. What are we, 2 minutes late? That seems reasonable for Vlog Thursday number 277. And there are things to talk about, stuff to do. The final countdown. You know, you can't say that because then it just, now it's in my head. I didn't even have a chance to change it. Go here, change it to the LTS logo up at the top there. StreamYard's pretty handy. This is how I do some of these still. People ask occasionally. I do debate about looking at different software for it, but right now this is one we've been using for a little while, so it works really well for handling my live streams. I still need better ways to share screens. I'm slowly getting better at that. You know, only 277 episodes in. Eventually, I'll figure this out. Excuse me. I just had a quick lunch. I had to hammer out and reply to emails and do a lot of the life thinking that I have to do. I also have an event to go to, so I do have a hard stop at 4 o'clock so I can get to my next thing I have to go do today. But we're going to be talking about stuff. Isn't Rochester just outside of Detroit? Someone said, yeah, Rochester, New York, not Michigan. And yes, there is a Rochester, Michigan as well. So we do have that. That's about 30 minutes or so north of me, roughly. Depends on traffic. It's a traffic trip to get to Rochester, Michigan for me. There's lots of things here. Anyone knows that that users with minimum privileges can't change most settings or install remote software in an AD environment can click upgrade Windows 11, but it works. Oh, I'm positive there's some way to pivot from that. So you're probably right. You're probably right. There's a lot of security things to think about all around that. So Zachary Brown is in Rochester Hills now. So Rochester Hills, Michigan. Woohoo! Local people. But among the things we're going to talk about today, because I have it in here, so I'll actually jump right into the talking points. I actually started making a video on this. I have had a week of really, really busy stuff that has not allowed me to get any videos rocked out. So live streams are easy because I can just make goof ups and you're like, oh, he's doing it live. So he goofed up. He was doing it live. So that's why I like doing these. Sometimes they can be kind of fun. But we will talk about the pfSense beta. I wanted to jump into that because this is actually pretty cool. Maybe even really cool. Because make it bigger, right? This right here is going to be something people get excited about. Well, people in the business world who have the VPNs pushed to the limit are going, do we have to upgrade our firewalls? Well, interesting. You will be doing software upgrades when this is released that will give you some more performance. And I think that's a really cool thing to think about, is that you're going to be able to get a performance boost with software with the data channel offload without having to replace the firewall. Let me just pull up the page on it. You know, why isn't there a shortcut that just lets me switch pages? I've been saying that for a little while, but one day we'll have it. But let's talk about what data channel offload is, because this is actually one of those exciting things that's coming to OpenVPN. And security is one of the most important things to consider when you're online. Your online communications are secure with encryption. The more your online communications are secure with encryption, the better. Data encryption has slowed down computing speeds in the past, which has improved with modern CPUs, but we can do more. I like the encouragement from a VPN. Now, really what we want to go down here to, there's lots of technical details. This is easy to find for those of you that want to read technical details that maybe will be covered later when it's all hashed out in a video. But this is the part we care about right here, is what does client ton server DCO look like? What are some of these speed changes? So client DCO, server ton, client DCO here, standard tunnel versus OpenVPN DCO on both. Yes, data channel offload is a substantial bump in speed when it's integrated. So these are going to be some interesting performance numbers that you're talking to say OpenVPN is comparative in speed to some of the other stuff. Why is it? Hold on. Why did it not do the right page? There we go. Now I can scroll to there. There we go. We want numbers because stats. That's what we need to know. Will DCO require AES-NI for offloading? Right now you need to have. I don't think that's required for offloading, but pretty much any processor, most processors made since like 2013 or 2014 have AES-NI, but the challenge is what ciphers support it, because AES-NI is good for AES ciphers, but you don't need AES-NI and it doesn't help with other ciphers such as the Cha-Cha Poly cipher. So it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it's necessary to make this work because it supports other ciphers. So whether or not it will actually make a big difference, I don't know. There's certain circumstances where maybe it will. That's gonna be up in the air, but I don't think it's gonna be required. And if that's the question there, have I heard of RISA VPN? You got me to Google it, and unfortunately, that doesn't really yield any information. So what is? I don't know what that is. RISA VPN. Nope, that doesn't find it either. So I don't know what it is, and neither does Google. So it's so new, no one's heard of it. Or maybe I'm typing it wrong. Is it RIZZIA or LA? It looks like an LA. RAZZLA. I read it as IA. Nope, that didn't help either. So I don't know what it is. So I haven't heard of it. Neither has Google. Google did not even yield a result for that. So, but back to OpenVPN, which has been code audited and vetted and really embedded within many systems. This is not just a pfSense thing. This is actually OpenVPN having the DCO. Where the pfSense comes in is, by the way, you notice how OpenVPN says Linux? That's because this was all written in Linux. And now this is coming to the FreeBSD world courtesy of pfSense. So that's where a really big difference is the fact that pfSense Netgate did the engineering for this. And this is going to be a great upgrade when this comes into release. And no, don't ask me when it's going to be released because I don't know. But this is going to be a nice boost in performance for OpenVPN on the same existing hardware you have. Now, I will comment on this because someone will ask the question. That highlight right there. OpenVPN DCO will be available exclusively on pfSense Plus. So I will address that, and that is going to be an issue. So people that are concerned about it, yes, but they also have a free upgrade path to pfSense Plus. They're still developing, and there's still a beta release of the new pfSense, the new community edition, but there's certain functions such as DCO and ZFS boot environments, which we'll talk about next, that will only be available in pfSense Plus. So just so people know, yes, that is a fact. I will address it right away, and I won't hide it, so to speak. So people say, but Tom, it requires pfSense Plus. Yes, it's right in their documentation. They're very clear on that. So tap performance improvement, that I don't know. I don't know if there's anything you can do with tap. I probably would guess no. But let's look. And I say let's look because I do have, let me find it. Is it 1.41? Let's log into the pfSense. There we go. And we're going to go VPN, open VPN. Let's add a server real quick. Here, TLS. Hey, the option box is there on both. So I'm going to say it works. Pretty cool. It's not disabling the option box. So there's that. We can probably walk through the wizard. Let's just wizard it. Next. Got to add a CA. Create new search. WAN descript test. I think I should be able to click next. Oh, I missed something. What did I miss? Data tunnel network. I think I missed that. That should be all I need to put in here. Firewall rule, open VPN rule next. Finish. Edit. Enable. If we enable these two things, will they contradict each other and not allow me to save? Let's find out. Save. Well, it didn't error, so it looks like, yes, that's something we can do. At least, I don't know how, I didn't, this isn't a full test, but this is at least a test that says it works. It doesn't fail. It doesn't fail to start. For a remote access VPN, would you recommend going with IPsec or OpenVPN or WireGuard? Also, how do you onboard users without manually exporting per client certs? This is why people use OpenVPN. OpenVPN allows for things like local user database, or OpenVPN also allows for things like external authentication against Radius, or tying it in through a series of steps to like an Active Directory server. That's pretty common. This is why OpenVPN isn't going away. It's just one of those things where when you're dealing with a lot of users, the user management tools within OpenVPN make it a really popular choice, and why it's not going away, and why I care about DCO. You know, this is already embedded and integrated across a huge number of our clients and a lot of consulting projects we do, because it's a good solution and it works. It's simple as that. So, and WireGuard is cool, but WireGuard is more about the protocol and less about the user management. That's like, that's not where they went. That's why I thought it was silly when people were telling me, but WireGuard's code is so much smaller. And I'm like, well, of course it is. It doesn't have the same functionality of OpenVPN. Granted, it also doesn't have the legacy cipher support, but it doesn't have all that extra functionality for things. So there's that. Let's see. Yeah. OpenVPN is best for that. I have tried AD server for authentication. Yep. I actually, for site-to-site VPN, I really do like WireGuard. The simplicity and low complexity and speed of WireGuard is good for site-to-site. So I will say that. But you can also use OpenVPN and IPsec as well. So there's definitely, those are all there. Would you recommend multi-gigabit WAN, 3 gig? I mean, if you have multiple things, you can tie them all together. But having 3 separate 1 gig connections does not give you a 3 gig connection. I think I have some I have an SD-WAN video where I kind of explain how you actually bonding versus individual ports. OpenVPN, you can connect to phone, forget about it 6 months later, still connected. Yeah. How do you do AD with OpenVPN? I think there's actually a write-up. There you go. There's the write-up. So if you Google it, it's the first result. Is the Netgate documentation on how to set it up. So Netgate actually has a whole setup on this. I don't have a video on it, but I have a video on how to do Radius. I don't have a video on how to do AD, but it's pretty much, you're close to it once you get it Radius. You just have the Radius server somewhere else. So yeah, it is supported. Is there any good way to output the cert installer OpenVM like Access Server has a web server where people can log in and get to it? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and install it. We go over here to the package manager, available packages, OpenVPN client export. We're going to click install. Actually, let me go into the server here because we have to have the server connect properly. So we do this. It's got to be tunnel mode. Save. There you go. Now, I set it up as authentication only, no cert, because I don't feel like setting up search for each client. If you turn it on, it will list each person's in here, but there's the installer, current Windows installer, and it has all the search wrapped right in there. So it's a Windows installer with all the certifications. So it works. So that's that's how we do ours. We use the OpenVPN tool and then we can just set it up. It makes it a lot easier. Under user manager, authentication servers, pfSense, as your AD server is LDAP directory, and then it becomes authentication. Yes, you can do it as LDAP or Radius. Both are supported. Watching at 2x speed to catch up. So yeah, pfSense for multi-gigabit. Yeah, you can. Bonding is an SD-WAN thing. That's where some people get a little bit confused. I think I've got a whole video where I talk about the difference between bonding and SD-WAN. Yeah, there's a lot to it. So let's go back over to, well, let's just show it. This is the other new feature. Yes, by the way, full disclosure, this is a pfSense Plus feature. But let's talk about how fast we can create a new boot environment. So let's have you ever considered Docker creating dashboards of pfSensing any stats? No, I don't do Docker. It's just really not my thing. There are other YouTubers who do. Jay is among them. Jay from Learn Linux TV. You can watch his Docker series. I think Techno Tim has a few Docker ones. There's a few other people that have Docker videos. I do not. I'm not really a big Docker user. But the boot environments. So let's go ahead and purge a couple of these. We don't really need these ones or this one, but I want to do an update. So let's create a new boot environment. Doing it live on YouTube. Oh, it says no spaces. So doing it live. There we go. Oops. Did I hit the caps lock? Yes. What's happened earlier? Is my shift key's messing up. That's weird. Why is my shift key not working? There we go. So now we have this boot environment, and there's probably more updates. Let's go ahead and update this system. Is there an update? Hey, why not? Go ahead and hit this update here. Now, this is also going to create a boot environment. What these are, and we're going to download the latest live here. So confirm, let it go ahead and get the update. We're going to go from the 5.13 to the 5.19 base. And also, I'm going to open up another window. There we go. If this doesn't boot, well, actually, yeah, let me share this window right here. So we'll stop sharing that because we want to share screen window. That looks like the right window. There we go. All right. Now you're going to see how the boot environments look, because what it did was it used ZFS snapshots to create these boot environments. So this is really cool because it's going to be rebooting here in 10 seconds. And I'm serial consoled into a Netgate 4100. Syncing this. There we go. So I'm going to go one more menu. Space. Then we're going to go to option 8. Oh, did I do it wrong? Yes, I didn't press 8. I pressed enter. Nonetheless, if it doesn't boot, we'll have to do this again. We'll have to reboot it. So, but you've seen there's an option for boot environments, and those boot environments let you go through and switch back to previous known good states. This is a really handy feature. And this is part of the integration they have with ZFS to make all this work. So I really like how this works. Yeah, the boot environments feature is really cool. So yes, absolutely. For OpenVPN, is TCP more secure, stable than UDP? I highly recommend you use UDP for performance. Security-wise, they're the same. I don't think there's any difference in security. If setting up privacy VPN, Nord or PIA, would you use OpenVPN or WireGuard if available? I've been doing it with OpenVPN because I'm used to doing it that way. I think it's supposed to be a little faster with WireGuard. I mean, it's on my to-do list to redo one of my VPNs and set it up that way, but it's also low on my priority list. But some of my staff have switched to using, they do some privacy VPN stuff with the WireGuard. Said, as far as I know, it works well. There's less documentation on it, so it's going to test your skills and your knowledge more than an OpenVPN, because I have videos detailing how to do an OpenVPN. I have not made any videos detailing how to do it in WireGuard. Had an issue, my OpenVPN would work on a Linux computer, but not on any Connect app. It would connect other traffic, but no other traffic around. Any thoughts? Somewhere you got a parameter wrong on there, so it's hard to say without seeing it. That's a good post for the forums, because then you can detail out the parameters on there and someone can look at what's wrong on there. What analysis or test do you do to determine if a client would benefit from upgrading a local network beyond 1 gig? You just look at the saturation on the network of what they're moving. It pretty much is 1 gig network upgrades are pretty much exclusive to clients doing video editing, clients doing some type of large data movement. That's really what it is. And majority of the ones that we work with are video editors, but there's a few data scientist type people. They definitely benefit from more than 1 gig as well. But yeah, there's not really a test. You just kind of look like, oh, you're editing videos. Now, even people we have some companies that are very big graphic design companies, but they're editing Photoshop and InDesign type files. It doesn't even seem to be a big deal to them. So you just look at the saturation on a per port basis and see if anyone's ever really saturating it. But most of your offices just are not. Oh, you don't accept NordVPN spot? Yes, I am the only blogger who does not. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So just like having pfSense in a VM and get snapshots. Yeah, except you don't have any of the problems you run into having a pfSense in a VM. And we have very few clients of pfSenses in the VM and lots and lots and lots of pfSenses out in the field that we have to manage that are not in a VM. So other advantages here are going to be using ZFS. You don't have to deal with corrupted files. So if I randomly power cycle a pfSense, there's not really going to be an issue there. So let's go ahead and log back into pfSense. We'll share that screen again once it's logged in. share screen. Yeah, that one. Cool. Hey, look, I'm on the latest version again now. What's the build on this one? Built quick, blah, blah, blah. BIOS system. It just says latest. It's today's build. To last night's, I guess today. There's our little ZFS widget. I think that's all that really says. It doesn't do much else. Install a package. There's our disks. Usage. Pretty slick. System. Boot environments. Which one? So this is our active boot environment. Doing it live on YouTube. We can revert back to this if we want. Activate one time and reboot. It's just really slick. Also, when you're doing a reboot, diagnostics reboot, they've also integrated it here. So if we wanted to go back to the previous one, we could go here and reboot into that environment. So select an inactive boot environment to activate on next boot only. So you could do this, and we can go back to the doing it live and we reverted back, but then we can go back to our other one. And yeah, it's just really slick how all this works. I'm really happy all this integration they had in here. iPerf can't hang with 100 gig. I don't have 100 gig to test that right now. Is it bad to run pfSense in a virtual machine? It's not bad. It's problematic. What happens is there's certain updates or certain changes that have problems in virtual machines, and you wouldn't believe the number of consulting calls we do. See, a lot of the knowledge I have is not based on random opinion. It's based on a lot of consulting work we do with people and the troubleshooting. If you're good at it and you understand all the pros and cons of running things in a VM, awesome. But if you start having all these performance issues and hardware offload issues and all the other things that you have to understand how to manage, it's the same reason Chris from Crosstalk Solutions doesn't recommend running free PBX virtually unless you know what you're doing, because you've now added a layer of complexity onto your phone system. It's not that that's necessarily bad, but now you have two places to troubleshoot, and people don't always set up their VMs right. Therefore, are you troubleshooting a pfSense issue or are you troubleshooting a virtual machine issue? It just adds some layers of complexity. I also like the fact that when I have to update my virtual system, which there's a patch and I have to reboot it, I don't lose internet when I do so. So that's another reason for me. But then someone will point out, well, just do everything in HA. Well, that's not always everybody's home lab has HA. Maybe yours does. So there's a lot more consideration. And hardware is generally cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of money to run a pfSense. It does not need to run on a high wattage device. I can't use pfSense too easy for hackers hack into. Look at articles, configure pfSense, and still get hacked. So I moved to Untangle. Hey, do whatever works for you. It's not easy for hackers to get into pfSense. It is easy to misconfigure any firewall, and a firewall with more options gives you more options of things you can misconfigure. So there is things that if there's a lot of knobs and buttons, sometimes people touch all the knobs and buttons. I won't lie. Do you have any inside knowledge if Netgate will develop a way to integrate AD with pfSense, create firewall rules with users in mind, not IP? Not likely. I don't foresee that as being something they work on. Any plan to do a full video on SureNAS scale? Eventually, yes, I will. I'm going to do one on core first because core is what we do the most amount of work on, and we have the most amount of servers. The other problem, and we're literally working on this as we speak, is the doing performance testing, and we're going to be doing performance testing with scale. So sneak peek at some of the preview tests, but we're doing a whole series of benchmarks, and we're going to be benchmarking core and scale and 12 and 13 and analyzing all these numbers. So see if there's any differences in them. But one of the things we did notice from my previous testing is scale did not have the performance. So it's going to be a little, that's why I want to do that one second. And just based on most of our consulting cores where we do most of the business consulting work. So I do more videos on that. Not that I don't like scale. It's just, comes down to performance is what matters, even for myself. I tried scale on my system and I couldn't get the performance out of it. So I went back to core because that's something I really need for all the workloads we have. Nick Order, naming is a huge pain in the butt on the pfSense VMs. It can be. Netgate 6100 Max pfSense plus security gateway took me 3 months to get and best investment ever. Happen to be attending RSA in June. Be my first as senior network engineer, moving to NetSec engineer. I will not be at RSA. I actually laughed. Someone in the security community said too many people had asked, so they changed their LinkedIn name to their name will not be at RSA and then their last name. So I will be at Black Hat, but I won't be at RSA. Are you going to do a TNSR pfSense plus video feature? Not likely. I don't use TNSR, so I don't think I'm going to do a video on it anytime soon. I don't really have the impetus to learn it because we're just not using it. I mean, if we had use cases for it, we would do videos on it, but we really don't, and so not really a big thing. TrueNAS in a VM, I always say no. I've watched people lose entire data sets that way because of bugs in the VM setups. Not that it can't be done. There'll be someone who says, but mine works fine. Yeah. And the people that contact us for consulting who have big messes and can you recover my ZFS pool? Yeah. So nonetheless, let's see. I would look into AD for DHCP and see if there's ways to assign IPs and user. I don't know why you would do that. So, but hey, it's open source. You can start writing code and try to make that happen. I'm not sure why you want it to happen, but you probably could. Let's see. TrueNAS VM at home at work now. Yeah, I would never run it in a production workload, but then the home users generally are worse off because they end up building these bigger pools and don't have anywhere to put the data when it's failing and has a problem. So that it's some of the home users have had like the more desperate calls for help. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like you need to offload the data somewhere to reload it into a regular machine. Like, but I put all my money and all the drives in this device and I don't have anywhere to put the data in the meantime. I'm like, yeah. What about VMware? I'll be using my lab practice work. Would love to see how. What about VMware for virtualizing it? I don't care what virtualization you use. I don't recommend any of them for TrueNAS. Use whichever one makes you happy, but none of them are on my recommendation list. I don't know because I never test PPOE. We don't have, I'm not saying we have zero, but we have very little PPOE here in the United States. PPOE is really a European thing. I'm European in other areas. I know it's not just Europe. It just seems like most of the people asking are in Europe. I know it's used elsewhere, and in small pockets, it's used here in the United States. I don't really do much testing with it, so that's a forum post over at Netgate, not really something I have an answer to. TrueNAS on a VM, if you can redirect the HBA, that's the only way to do it. But even then, that's where the data corruption comes in. I've seen where I don't know what it is. There was just error messages on a couple people's systems. Xavier had this problem. You may remember seeing him. He's one of my hacker friends. He's been on a channel a few times, and Xavier lost a bunch of data, even though he had his HBA pass through. it just kept crashing. We don't know why. The machine worked fine, reloaded it raw with TrueNAS. It had no errors at all. So pass through random CRC errors once in a while. Eventually it caused a bunch of corruption, and it was a headache to get the data off before all the corruption was then. Reloaded it bare metal, worked fine, no errors. And that's like, and he's not the only one that's had this problem. Have you looked at the Rock Store yet? Any initial thoughts? It looks novel. I don't have really a use case that makes me want to use it. There's nothing compelling about it. Like, it was novel. And the reason we brought up Rock Store, and we pull it up real quick. The reason Rock Store got brought up, NAS, because it uses ButterFS. But ZFS being better than ButterFS is there. Now, if I was going to build a Pi 4 server for NAS, this is probably what I would go with, but that's low on my priorities list. And last I checked, there we go. Last I checked, they're not, Pis are, I got to watch Jeff Gerling's video on it. There's ways to make it work, but I don't know how well Pis work. They're nice low powered NASs. I mean, but outside of building a Pi NAS, which is low on my priority list right now, it's pretty cool. I think it's novel. I like that it exists, but I don't really have any solid use case for using it. Is it necessary to change the default IP login pfSense to a 10 dot or 172? They have no bearing at all on protection, whether you're using a 10 dot or a 172 network. As long as you're using an RFC 1918 network, you're good. What are your consulting clients using to route 10 and 2040 gigabits? You talking about like the data center stuff? Everything from Juniper to Cisco stuff. I think I'm seeing more Juniper in some of that. So you thought Rockstar was dead. I don't really know. When's the last downloads? When's the last image? You know, it'd be great if we had dates on this. They have a blog, so I could see shop downloads, OpenSUSE, community resources, solutions. I hate when people don't have blogs. Let's go with their GitHub. When's some of the Rockstar Core? When's the last updates for it? 6 months ago? 4 months, 4 months. So there's still updates. I don't know. So 6 months ago. So it's not. Oh, January 11th is the latest. There we go. So 4110 was released on January 11th. So yeah, I mean, that's 4 months ago. So I guess that's reasonably active. You can buy a Celeron NUC. You can cheaper buy a Pi. That's one of the bigger reasons I'm not working on a lot of Pi projects right now. They're definitely, yeah, Pis are overpriced right now. I don't know. I don't test much MikroTik stuff. I think that's a MikroTik model number, and I don't do much testing on MikroTik. Even using RDM on VMware, your storage address wasn't really built to work like a virtual install. Your results will vary. Data Core, for example, is built from the ground up for virtual install. With ZFS, does the hardware RAID need to be in a chipset, or is all OS controlled? ZFS should have direct access to the hard drives. That's really important. Willie Howe, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I don't know. How many? See, we're talking about ZFS and cows, not woodchucks. OpenSUSE 1513, which is latest stable. Okay. So you got to get on the ZFS as a cow. That's where can I find that link? think I have the ZFS COW. Pop that in there. There we go. ZFS is a cow. I have a couple of videos. Matter of fact, if you just type in this, I also have one that says TrueNAS, ZFS, Dev Pool Design, RAID Z, RAID Z2, RAID Z3, Capacity, Integrity, and Performance. I have a couple explainer videos that break down these details on how ZFS works. These top 3 results on my channel, you can find it break down a lot of the ZFS concept. I have 5 cords of wood. Ha 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 ha. I don't know. Never heard of Clavister, so I have no opinions on it. Don't know who they are. So don't know who Clavister is, so I have no thoughts. Let's see. If a drive fails, how do I rebuild the ZFS RAID? For the most part with ZFS, let's I think we can log into this one here. Let me get it logged in. There are options to replace drives. So if you're in here, actually it's the wrong spot. We need to go to here. Here's all my drives, and there's options with these 3 dots over here to do things like replace a drive. Now, I don't have an extra drive to replace. Actually, yes, I do on another system. Let's log into this one. So if I wanted to replace this drive, nope, they're not, none in this one. I think we took the hot spares out, but it'll show the spare discs and I can replace them there. I've got videos on how to replace drives in there. You can do it from the command line too, but I'm not going to walk you through the command line right now. TrueNAS makes that really easy to do. Hey, Lawrence, do you know Candace? I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I probably know someone named Candace, but I'm not the best with names. So it sounds like someone has had good luck with virtualizing it. So yes. Is it possible to hide the pfSense ID name if you rename it from pfSense? Can you hide its name? I don't know what ID name you're trying to hide. Do you ever migrate on-premise mExchange to G Suite? I don't know that it'd make compelling content or video. There's a tool that G Suite has. Exchange migration. I think. Yeah, there's a write-up on it. So there's a migration tool for it. But I don't know that it's going to make compelling content. There's so few people that ask for that. And I don't really think it's that popular. Ryan, you do not understand how pfSense works. I'm sorry, but that is not how. They do not come through your WAN and mess with your pfSense unless you have to open your WAN for them to come in. By default, pfSense keeps closed the WAN, does not expose it. So if someone came in through your WAN, they came in because you opened it, because you actively went in pfSense and made a change. So it's as simple as that. So do not open your WAN admin interface. Simple as that. The pfSense WAN interface. Matter of fact, we can do this right here. Let's go to 141. Firewall Rules WAN. I added this rule and it says allow external firewall access. Tom implicitly added this rule. And because you can see created by admin, that is what allows me to remotely through the WAN interface access this firewall. By default, that rule does not exist. So yes, it requires you do not want to open up your WAN port. If you're opening that, then you are opening up for the potential for someone to log in. Yeah, no good firewall allows WAN direct access. That is a user mistake. Well, no. Unfortunately, there have been many firewalls, not good firewalls, but many firewalls that defaulted to this. pfSense is not among them, though. pfSense does not, by default, have WAN open. So, yes. Usually the best is none. So that's my answer is don't change settings. Generally, it works fine without messing with QoS settings. Start there. People optimize things without testing and generally find, I've kind of joked a couple times that a lot of the consulting work we do is people hiring us to reset things to default. And then here's the bill. And they're like, well, I thought I had to change all these settings. I'm like, I'm not sure why you thought you had to change them. To quote, I think this was Jim at pfSense who said this, if there were better default settings, we would make them the default settings. So the default settings actually are really good in pfSense for gaming or whatever. Now, there may be some exceptions, and we can actually, hold on, this is the Netgate blog. Of note, this is something that I don't have an easy solution for, but this is something you'll run into if you have this scenario. And this is a new feature that's coming to this one. I can say is coming to both, but fix UPnP for multiple game systems. Sometimes the only way to make an Xbox or a PlayStation work may be to turn on UPnP because you don't want to go through all the details of port forwarding. They're doing some more fix when you're running multiple gaming systems on there. There may be something you have to do for that. Maybe. Like for me, though, I didn't. Well, I take that back. I did have to. Destiny had a port forward that makes it work better because I do play Destiny, Destiny 2. So I guess that's kind of a not default settings. Have you experienced with NetCloud? Yes, some. I don't use it much. Someone asked me about it again. I tell people who want me to set it up, no problem. One, here's the price to set it up. And then they don't like the price to maintain it because they're trying to save money. And I'm like, if you don't maintain it, you have a problem. Cloud. Let's see. Where was it? Somewhere. Next cloud hack. I think it was in a PHP. This is a little while ago, but I just want to bring this up because software is insecure. There's two states of software. We know about the vulnerability. We don't know about the vulnerability. We know about the vulnerability and there's a patch. We don't know about the vulnerability. We know there's always going to be another vulnerability. That's just a given. So what happens is if you decide to use Nextcloud and you want to have it publicly exposed, you have to have a plan, one, to back it up in case it gets hacked, two, to patch it immediately if there's a big bug found in it. Now, any software with increasing complexity is the more likely to have bugs in it. Therefore, you need a plan. And what people don't like is when they go, well, I want Nextcloud. And they're like, but I don't want to pay for all these patches. I was hoping to get it for free. the software is free, but if you're going to publicly expose it, make sure you have a plan to address if a issue comes up. That's just something you really have to think about. pfSense, multiple zones, any way to get them to auto DMZ instead of auto LAN, meaning when you create rules out of a zone for them to reach, they will be able to reach other zones. You can create and name them anything you want. So you just have to create the rules on how you want each section set up. So I'm not exactly sure. Not exactly sure what your question is. Other people saying Nextcloud is great. I like it's good. Titan. How do you back up the pfSense fleet you have deployed? We download the config for anyone we manage. We don't always manage all of them, so sometimes we just help internal IT teams set it up. We encourage them to use the auto backup feature because Nextcloud needs to be updated monthly. Yeah, there's a lot of updates that need to be done. So yes, this is my answer. Don't expose it to the internet. There you go. Yeah, I don't understand your firewall rule question. You can create 10 zones, VLAN interface to subnet. When you set an address to a rule, say op2 can see op3 as well. So you need to block all of them. No, it doesn't. So you have to, when you create a new interface in pfSense, we'll do this right now. There's no rules on it. So if we firewall, matter of fact, actually, let me see what interface assignments we have. So here's like LAN 4. Firewall rules. I bet there are. Hey, look, no rules. Anything I plug in here won't work and can't talk to any other interface. LAN 2, 3, and 4 are all created here with no rules. So there's nothing. It doesn't. You can plug into it. It's not going to talk to the other interfaces. That's why I don't understand your question, because this is the default. If I add an interface or like a VLAN, we can do that. We'll add a VLAN. There's VLAN test. We go to firewalls, interface assignment, add, cool, enable it, give it an IP address. Actually, we got to set it to static. Zero 24 save. Whoop. Yeah, that one can't be used. So let's do it this way. Let's do 2168. We'll put it. Oh, I had a .0 in there, didn't I? Doing it live, man. All right, we've now created a whole new interface, called it opt5. We'll let it apply the changes. Firewall rules. Hey, look, no rules. That I'm not clear. Yeah. It default. This is actually usually what gets people in trouble. It default doesn't have any rules, so people create the interface and go, the interface doesn't work. And when the interface doesn't work, then they're like, I don't know what I did wrong. I'm like, well, you have to at least create one rule to start allowing. But this is probably maybe what you're talking about. Allow all. So if we say any, well, now it can access all the other interfaces, because that's source, destination, everything can be accessed. So that's it's just the way the rules work. There's a whole section in the pfSense documentation on how the rules are created and how they work. So We're going to delete this rule. Apply. Interfaces assignment. Let's go ahead and disable the interface. Save. Apply. We're winding it all back. You know what I should have did? Created a boot environment so I don't have to unwind all of this. Assignments. Actually, that's a fun one. No, I won't even bother. I've come this far. Delete, delete, then delete the VLAN. And we've unwound it. But I should have did a boot environment because I could just snapshot it, reboot it, and those features won't be there. So in pfSense, I have ports defined with the aliases for my PS4 and allow them outbound for games to work. The games like COD publish that info so you can keep your firewall locked down. Yes, this is an option as well. You can use, I have a video on how to do aliases, and it's well documented in the Netgate documentation. TrueNAS Open Storage. Are they in here? I see you're tagging and at them. With ZFS, special device increased performance containers stored on the server over NFS. It really depends. I have a video on how the caching works in ZFS. So the caching is going to be, it will it'll help performance overall if you're doing caching on it. As long as it's caching that is relevant to the workload you have. So it's not like automatically add it and get, it's not like you automatically get performance by doing it. It's depends on your workload. Let's see. What else was on my list of things to talk about? I'm looking at my list again. Where did I put the live stream itself? There it is. 181 people and 44 likes. Smash that like button. That's always appreciated. Let's see. Unrelated question. Have you thought about doing a video on backplane? What's backplane? I don't know what backplane is. So lots of small files that run K3 workloads. So the caching in ZFS, as I'll show you here. Can I log into this one? This one's running a workload now. I don't know what workload it's running. Hey, look at the cache usage. So what you'll notice is when you go over here to the reporting, ZFS, and if you'll see all these hits right here for the different like ARC request demand metadata, ARC request demand data here, ARC hit ratio, the way the ARC size, how it starts out here, it goes up and down. We're actually running active benchmarks on this particular system. So it will make a big difference. Like right now, the more cache you have is really the huge performance factor. So having lots of cache is going to help you a lot, as in RAM, lots of memory, because that's where most of the caching is. And that makes a big difference in performance. This is actually, go back over to their reporting. Do we have, there you go. Here we're doing it all in NFS. So the cache in the NFS, and you notice this line for the different read and write performance tests we're doing line up perfectly with when we look at ZFS and the caching hits. So absolutely, you can benefit from cache. Specifically, this is all just RAM cache on there, but it makes a big difference. Well, let's see. A 10 gig or 2.5 gig network, will 1 gig LAN port on the router slow down traffic or between VLANs? No. Nope. It's the between VLANs. If the router only has 1 gig ports, then yes, it can't go faster than the port for inter VLAN routing unless you have a switch that supports inter VLAN routing. My country blocks VPNs as a way to make pfSense bypass a block. Not really. There's mitigations to when VPN blocking has been employed. You have to know what kind they did and work around it. It's not a pfSense solution. It's a how are they blocking it? How do you get around it type problem. I don't think there's any way to get the UNVR installed on TrueNAS. I would ask how well pfSense hardware might maintain failures 1-2 years. Oh, we have a lot of the pfSense hardware. We pull out of we've pulled some of the really old hardware out of service because it was old, not because it failed. We're not seeing a big failure rate on the TrueNAS hardware. If YouTube still had the 5-star thingy, I would give Tom 5 stars. It is much appreciated. Do you think TrueNAS will support LXC in the future? I have no idea. Ah, people notice the pool name. They like the LL Pool J. Is ZFS good for VM storage over iSCSI or NFS? It's good for both. You can use it for either one. It comes down to your use case. You can use ZFS, you can use iSCSI, I'm sorry, NFS or iSCSI, either one. Let's see. Oh, get TrueNAS installed in UNV hardware? I don't think so. I think all the UNV hardware is ARM. TrueNAS doesn't work on ARM. Rancher removed iSCSI as an option in the UI. I'm not sure then. Not sure. So, nonetheless, back to what was the other testing we're doing? I had a couple more minutes and I got to take off. So let's see how the testing's going. I can actually show the other side of the benchmarks. Doing it on a Ryzen system. There we go. The tests are still running. Woohoo! Show these on here. These are the other benchmarks we're running, so you can see what they look like on the other side. This is an XCPNG with my LL Pool J. This is part of the fun. We get me and my staff play around. Everything has a silly name for all of our lab stuff because I want to laugh every time I see it. So I want to, you know, I'm trying to figure out a good song to play on words because Mama said "knock you out" with LL Cool J. I don't know if that's a great one for an ass, but I at least like LL Cool J as a name. What's better, Synology, TrueNAS, or Open Media Vault? It's all about use case. It's kind of like asking the question of what's better, a pickup truck or a very large truck. Well, what are you going to do? Like with a what would they call them in England? Like a lorry, the very large. They're not the same device. They're not the same use case. They have very different features. So it's not a matter. There's not a binary answer for that. I do have a comparison though of TrueNAS versus Synology. So I have a video where I break down all the details. Would L2 arcs serve the cache files. My main pool drives are spun down to lower energy use tuners. No, I don't think so. I don't think that would work. I've never tried it, but I don't think spinning down the drives, it still sometimes may request the data. So I don't know if it would even let the drive spin down. Since you've been promoting pfSense, I said I'd bring my old Mac Mini from storage and try it. Been flawless for 6 months, total overkill. Hey, at least it's fun. Good old days in a data center of named servers after constellations. QNAP, yes. I'm not a big fan of QNAP because of their poor security practices. They are really bad about keeping up with security. Oh, there, someone's got it. Mama said nasty you out. You know, here's how we're going to fix this. TrueNAS said... Here we go. It has been named. So now I'm going to send this to my staff real quick. I actually like this, so I'm cool with this. I thank you for that. That pun made my day. There. That's now been sent to the group chat at the office, so they can see that I changed the name of it. Yes. That's huge. I'm happy with that one. How are the Buffalo Drive solutions? As far as I think, and I don't know this for certain, so someone can correct me on this. A few people said it is now based on the QNAP stuff. I don't know that to be certain, but it's been a long time since I looked at them. So, don't you just love renaming everything in XO? Oh, they make it so easy just to change the names and stuff, and move things around. Zen Orchestra makes my life easy. There is no doubt. It just works. It just works. Being able just to pivot to all the different systems really quickly and see what's running. This is the benchmark server. We're running Phoronix on it. But nonetheless, a couple more minutes. Any final questions? I'll give it 5 more minutes because after that, I got to get going and reply to some emails and do some fun stuff. Well, reply to emails, and I got an event to go to, physical in-person event. Those are always fun. So we'll cut it at 4:15. It is currently 4:10. So, ooh, I like this too. We can keep playing on words with this stuff because Mama said "rack you out" is actually pretty funny too. So, I love all this fun stuff. Have you used PyKVM? What's your favorite IP KVM? We have used it, and I gave it away, so I haven't used it recently. I thought they were pretty cool. Right now, the Raspberry Pis being expensive make them a less affordable choice, but they're pretty cool. How is ZFS performance in XCP-ng? I would say it works well. I've definitely built a couple machines with it for some testing. I did a super micro super server with it, and I was really impressed with how well it performed. Did a cost analysis ripping replacing all cameras right at $4,500. Yeah, the camera replacing is definitely thing. Where is the test server at Null Studio? It's still there. I was at my office today. So we built a bigger lab at the office. I moved my studio to my house. And my office is within half a mile or less. So when I go to the office, that's where we still set up. All that testing you're seeing, that's even this right here, is all running inside that same, well, this is a second rack. We have an entire second rack of lab stuff, and that's where all this is running. So I'm remoted in all the time to see all the tests and see everything else. So It's been fun. Your last live stream, starting a new job. Well, congrats on your new job. Hopefully it goes all really, really well. Any way to fall back to tier 1 WAN and pfSense? Had some troubles with flopping WAN over, failover, back and forth every minute. Yeah, there's tuning options. If you go in there's ways to tune and set thresholds for when and why it fails over. I picked up pizza just before the stream. So yes. Be switching to Amcrest. That's what I have, is all these Amcrest cameras. So I'm happy with, I like the Amcrest cameras. They've been happy. These are, does it tell me, where does it say? Does it say here? Yeah, there we go. Amcrest. I have a video on how these, on which model cameras, for those of you that want to know. See what's on camera today. Nothing interesting. Well, there's actually something interesting happening in my neighbor's yard. He's digging a big hole. So I don't think there's any way to see my, yeah, you can't see my neighbor. Nope, because it cuts off before you see my neighbor. There's my front yard, though. I cut the grass. I did that. Will TrueNAS ever get performant? I'm doing Gluster on Ubuntu with great performance, and it's easier with the help of Ansible than TrueCommand. I don't know. I mean, I can't see it not getting there. I just don't know when it will get there. So that's it's taken a long time. You got to remember, like, TrueNAS Core had been around forever, been tuned forever, so it's going to get there eventually. Is there any way in pfSense to see each interface, how much they use daily, weekly, etc.? Yeah, there's actually some plugins in pfSense that give you per interface breakdowns for data usage. Green screen the test rack into my live stream background. Yes. We just haven't been we just haven't really been doing any hot sauce videos, so not really high on the list. Dig a big hole like Bart Simpson. Yeah, he's fixing, there's a water main problem in his front yard. So that's, yeah. So the way it works, at least in my city, I don't have a huge front yard, but the city has a connection in the front by the sidewalk here, and that's where the city stops. So where the water pipe comes in, the homeowner is responsible. So his broke after the city. So now he's digging a big hole to fix it, to find out where the water break is. We just know all the water's coming out of the ground. If an interface fails on pfSense hardware, can we move all the configuration interface to a spare interface so we can get replacement hardware? Yes. That is something that can be done. Hey, awesome. Glad we can help. Glad I can help. I say we because I still consider all my staff and all of us a big team of people that help. So, Diggy Hole by Wild Rose. Yeah. All right. Well, when I'm trying to figure out what is, oh, that's a scooter. Motorcycles going by. Lots of stuff. I got my motorcycle back too. I just had the motorcycle in the shop for some repair, but I got to leave. I got to go do some stuff and go to an event. Thank you everyone for joining. Awesome. Hit me up on the forums, hit me up on Twitter, say hi, connect on LinkedIn, check out Business Technicalities. We got more videos we're publishing over there. So lots going on, lots to do. And I got to get back to it. And yes, some of those bigger videos are coming once I kind of get unburied from a few things. So awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. And hey, hello from the land down under. Unfortunately, I got to take off now. We've reached the very end of this. So, but thanks everyone for joining. See you next time.